Welcome to All Villa, No Filler. Remember to subscribe to the show. Follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. We've also been nominated for Best Podcast Premier League at the Football Content Awards, so please do vote for us on their website. I will leave a link in the title description. Now, Aston Villa return to Champions League action this week to play. Can't quite believe I'm saying this, but we are playing Bayern Munich at Villa Park this week. Cannot wait. To talk about that, I'm joined by Max Merrill. He's a German football expert and broadcaster. Max, good to speak with you again. How have Bayern performed under their new coach, Vincent Kompany?
Well, it's looked absolutely incredible so far. I mean, bar the draw on the weekend, it was 6 wins from six for Vincent Kompany. And considering that, depending which reports you believe, he was anywhere between fourth and seventh choice for the job. There's very publicly clear that he wasn't first choice. He's done really well. And to come into a job like that, where he's addressed it in the press conferences that he's been in, especially after that first Champions League win, the 9-2 against Dinamo Zagreb, which is a bit daunting for Um, After that press conference, he said, I had a lot of doubters. I read a lot about people saying, he's not fit for the job. Considering he came from a Claret side, which is much worse than Aston Villa, a Burnley side that was relegated, I think it was legitimate. People knew that he was nowhere near first choice. But I have to say, so far, so good. I have my doubts. I'm sure we'll get into that. But he's got a lot of things going for him right now, and he's fixed a lot of small things so far.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, how has their style changed from last season when they were coached by Thomas Tuchel?
I think there's just a lot more clarity to their play. I think Tuchel was often trying to do too much. I really like him as a coach. I think tactically he's one of the best, but he can rub people the wrong way. And companies weirdly, I mean, there's been some discussion about whether the fact that how they press mirrors a bit how Atalanta have done so, and Atalanta notably being the only side who beat Bayer Leverkusen in any competition last season. They've been really playing on the front foot, really aggressive attacking play. I think he's settled for a centre back pairing of with Upamecano and Min Jae Kim in the heart of defence. As a centre back himself, he knows how important it is to have that clarity for the entire back four. I think it was a very odd decision to sell Matthijs de Ligt and Mazraoui. Manchester United being the beneficiaries of that, although obviously hasn't shown, but there is that clarity, whether it's the back four, then going forward into midfield. Kimmich is back in midfield. He'd been pushed out to right back last season. I think he plays better there, but he doesn't like it himself, and he's in a contract year. So Kompany's really addressing a few little things throughout the lineup. He got actually Thomas Tuchel's dream signing, Joao Palhinha, and so far he's been kept out of the side somewhat by Alexander Pavlovic, who scored an amazing goal
Mm.
against Leverkusen and who is a real gem of a player. I mean, talk about good fortune for the German national team. You've got Toni Kroos and Ilkay Gundogan retiring from the national team, and then someone like Pavlovic pops up last season. And then up front, a player like Serge Gnabry, who I'd kind of written off at Bayern, coming back from his injury, looking a lot closer to his old self. Musiala looks imperious at the moment, and I think Kompany's recognised really this is really the heart of the team. Obviously, Harry Kane is the star, but Musiala has been kind of given that trust to be Bayern Munich's, sort of number 10 and standout player. And Michael Olise, who, Premier League fans know from Crystal Palace, has absolutely hit the ground running. I mean,
Mm.
he's a pretty boring interviewee, but he's lit it up in the pitch. And I think he's got 8 goal involvements across 7 games for Bayern. And I mean, Harry Kane's numbers are crazy.
Yeah, and you did sort of hint there might be, in your first answer, there could be some issues that maybe come down the line. Is there anything you've seen so far? I know the results have been pretty amazing,
Yeah.
but is there anything you've seen so far that you think could actually become an issue later in the day for Bayern?
Yeah, I mean, look at it this way. They conceded 2 against Zagreb. Yes, they scored 9, but you really think if you're going to put 9 goals past a team that is so clearly inferior to you, to concede 2 goals, I'm sure Manuel Neuer and the back four would have been pretty frustrated with that. A big boost could be that Harry Kane, Harry Kane looks likely to be able to play, but he did suffer a pretty painful knock against Leverkusen. He was subbed off, and Harry Kane's really not the type of player who gets subbed off a lot, especially for Bayern. And there's been a lot of will he play, won't he play? I think it's going to be, even if he's in the squad, touch and go whether he can start the game. And even if he does, the Villa players will know, okay, he's a little bit shaky on that one foot. Let's maybe give him a Premier League welcome. But I think, injuries are going to be really key for Bayern this season because they've already had an injury to their right back Bowie, and now there was the question: does Kimmich go back to right back? That could upset the balance and the chemistry of the team. Konrad Laimer, who is a midfielder who can play right back, didn't start against Leverkusen. It was the left back, Guerreiro. Bit of a weird choice for me. He's a really talented player who himself can actually also play midfield. So, but that's just like the tip of the iceberg for me. As soon as you get an injury to their centre back pairing or up front, I think especially going through the spine of the team, they're really thin there. Even though they've got a lot of options on the wing and positions like that, I feel like the spine of the team is quite thin. So if someone like Harry Kane's out, suddenly you're left with not a lot of options. You've got Thomas Müller, who doesn't really suit that role so much. Same goes for Matthijs Tell. And then Bayern become much less of a threat going forward.
Yeah, and obviously they've been on that incredible run, but it did come to an end this weekend. They drew 1-1 at the Allianz at home with a club very close to your heart, Leverkusen. Xabi Alonso seems to have Bayern's number, to be honest, in the last year. How did Leverkusen do it?
Yeah, I mean, they sat really deep, and they did so last season. And then last season, Bayern got very frustrated, and then gaps opened. And then I think the end result was 2-2 at the Allianz Arena, and then they beat them at home. It should have been 2-1 Bayern, to be honest with you. They were wasteful with their chances. But Leverkusen, what they did very well is they stopped them getting into the box as much as they usually do and stopped them running in behind. They sat really deep, and I think that's what Villa are going to have to do now. Leverkusen typically under Alonso playing a back three. Villa, as far as I know, haven't done that at all under Emery, and that would be well out of their comfort zone, so it's probably not an option. But I think it is a case of maybe just soaking up Bayern a little bit, because when they can run in behind, when they can run at you at pace, they're so dangerous. And I mean, I think the previous week they scored 20 goals across 3 games. It's ridiculous the firepower they have, especially now with Musiala, Olise, and Kane and the type of form they have been. So for my money, I think Villa are just going to have to really not park the bus, but really soak up the pressure, try and hit them on the break, and Villa have the players to do that. And I don't think Bayern are infallible. Like I say, to concede 2 goals against a Zagreb side who are clearly miles behind you in terms of quality. And the other thing is, what's maybe a little bit encouraging from the weekend's match is that Leverkusen scored after a corner. And I think, looking back at that goal, Bayern really didn't look very good. My take on Dayot Upamecano is that he's just not good enough. And that's why I was so surprised that they sold Matthijs de Ligt. I think he's a good player, but he's always good for a little slip up. He'll concede a penalty or he'll make a silly pass or something like that. Right now, him and Min Jae Kim have looked solid. They've got confidence in them. But if Villa can, hit them on the break, if they can make the best of their dead ball situations, and maybe just hope for Upamecano to have one of those nights where he just has a bit of a fumble, and then his confidence goes. We've seen it in the past season. Once he makes that one mistake, his confidence goes. Tuchel even substituted him at times, which it's quite unusual in a game for you to substitute your starting centre back unless he's injured or on a yellow card, looking like he's about to get another one. I think Upamecano is the type of player who can really get into his head when he makes a mistake. So if you can try and force a mistake, maybe tap Harry Kane's ankle a little bit, and then a couple of counters and a couple of corners, and you'll be laughing.
Go, we need to get you in for a team talk at Volleyball Heath Villa's training ground, I think. But I think with Bayern as well, obviously Harry Kane seems to be is the star sort of name. But for me, it's when I watch Bayern, Jamal Musiala is always the one that really catch my eye. And I think looks like someone who on his day can just be unstoppable. Um, I mean, how aware do Villa need to be of him, and where is he at his most dangerous, do you think?
I mean, he's playing through the middle this season, and he's like I said earlier. I think companies really recognized, look, I'm going to make this guy, which was kind of obvious before, but they've really leaned into making him the star of the team. Now, the question mark that's really hung over him, maybe, or the sort of last remaining element to his game is that consistency. And I mean, that's part of the course. If you want to be a top superstar, it's becoming consistent. Playing through the middle, he's really dangerous. I think he always wanted to play there, but maybe was shunted out wide a little bit in the past. And Thomas Müller is very much now on the bench for Bayern as a player who comes into a game around the 70th minute. I expect if Harry Kane starts, we will see Thomas Müller feature as a substitute, as he has done so much this season. But he's really accepted that role. So Musiala's made the number 10 his own, and he's, really, really dangerous. I mean, he's already got 3 goals and 3 assists this season, and it's obviously early days. And Elise has surprised me. I mean, I thought he was going to do well, but he's kept, him and Gnabry have kind of kept Coman and Sané out of the side, which I think is a good thing because Sané is a player who, on his day, is amazing, but he's so inconsistent,
Yeah.
and he has these defensive lapses that he's really worked on over the years. But yeah, I think if with Gnabry, I'm surprised at how good he's been coming back. Musiala, there's not much you can do to stop him. Leverkusen were quite clever on the weekend when they fouled him, but they really towed that line of the yellow card. And I think you've just got to get that right, and it's going to be really tricky. And if Villa get a couple of early yellow cards, they're going to be in a real sticky position because Musiala loves to run into crowds, and he just sort of weaves his way through, and he's got the skill to do that. So if you can just stop him, you're going to have to foul him basically, and you're just going to have to toe that line of not getting a yellow card.
Okay, and with Harry Kane's injury as well, what's the latest on that? I've heard a few mixed reports, like Bayern putting out something saying that things were looking, there was like a positive development, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's definitely going to be available on Wednesday. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean the club statement, like you say, positive development. What does that mean? He's still being treated. The Bayern sporting director Max Eberl did say, it doesn't look good. That was a bit closer to the end of the game. I expect he'll be okay to be in the squad. I don't know if he would be starting. It's funny with Harry Kane because I don't know what kind of agreement he has. Since joining Bayern, he basically just plays he plays for my money a little bit too often. He plays at 90 minutes. I think, especially in games where you're up 2-3-0, he doesn't get subbed that often, and he doesn't get left out that often. So if he's kind of fit, I think if he's anywhere close to fit, he will definitely be in the squad. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't start, but there is a chance. And if he doesn't start, then Bayern is suddenly a very different prospect. Because, like I say, they don't have a number 9 apart from Harry Kane. They've got Matisse Tell, who can play there, but is more of a wide forward so far in his career. And Müller, it's a bit of a different prospect when he plays as a number 9. He's not your typical number 9. And they got rid of Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting over the summer. I don't think he's a great loss, but he is the type of player that can sort of keep them in the normal system. Although Harry Kane does drop a bit deeper than your average striker. But I'm a little bit confused, as you are, by the statements put out by Bayern. But I would say, I think they're going to try and start him. If I was company, I probably wouldn't, just because I think it's not really great risking your only number 9 and your star player when he's got a knock.
Yeah, I did look at the Bayern team to think who might play instead of him, and I was sort of a bit. I was like, well, maybe you do Muller, but I don't really feel like I see him there very much anymore, any often. And maybe they might even stick someone like a Leroy Sane up there as a sort of false 9 type. It was quite. I couldn't really make my mind up at all, actually.
Yeah.
But something I did think about as well is that this season Villa played Arsenal at home, and last season we did a job on Arsenal twice, beat them twice. It was brilliant. But against Arsenal this season, we played a very defensive unit, kept it tight, and then just caught them making defensive mistakes and managed to work chances. And to be honest, should have been 2-0 up before Arsenal themselves scored and then actually went and won the game from one defensive lapse. So do you think Villa they're just going to have to go with that sort of approach where it is a very tight defensive unit. Don't give Bayern space, and then you just wait for that moment to break in behind. And are Bayern generally vulnerable to counterattacks?
I think they can be, yeah. You're, they are a good side. At the end of the day, they're a good side who they're not going to be error prone. And I think that's one of the key things that company has addressed is that they seem a bit more cohesive, they seem a bit more settled and savvy. For instance, last season against Leverkusen, they kind of got sucked into a little bit of a back and forth battle, and against Leverkusen in this game, I think they had about 18 shots and to Leverkusen's, three, four, five, something in that realm. And to be honest, they should have probably won the game. So um, I do still think, though, a side like Villa, with the pace that they have in their squad and the types of players that they have in their squad, could injure or could beat Bayern, really. So especially if Harry Kane's not at his best. But yeah, 100% think they have to sit deep, they have to soak it up, they have to make it really, really uncomfortable for Bayern. And we'll see. I think there's a chance.
Well, and there's one area for Villa at the moment that's causing quite a lot of concern, and we saw it against Ipswich this weekend, where at the right back area we have Matty Cash is injured. Two very young players can potentially come in, not a lot of experience with them. We put Conter out there, but he doesn't seem to perform that well at right back, and we put Diego Carlos into centre back, and he's a bit error prone as well. So down that side with Bayern, is it Gnabry and Alphonso Davies, and just how good are they together?
Yeah, Gnabry and Alphonso Davies, although Kingsley Coman could also play. If I was them, I probably would play Kingsley Coman. But so far, company's been quite keen to get Gnabry established in that position again. But yeah, Alphonso Davies is looking back to his best. He was a bit off it last season. He threw a bit of a strop as well. I think he was kind of angling for that move to Real Madrid, and also naturally he's a left winger, so he wants to get forward and he kind of wants to play there. But he's basically realised he can't play there for Bayern because he's been so good at left back, which is one of those. But Rafael Guerreiro does play left back. He's a bit of a different proposition. If if Company expects Villa to sit deep, like both of us kind of do, he might play Rafael Guerreiro at left back and Kimmich at right back. Because Rafael Guerreiro doesn't have the pace that Davies has. He's more of a technical player. He can play in central midfield as well. He's a good passer of the ball. He can strike the ball well. He scores goals from distance. So that's another proposition. But otherwise, the pacey option would be Davies and Coman. The maybe more technical option would be Gnabry and Guerreiro.
Okay, it's just hearing all these players' names. I'm like, oh my God, what are we going up against here? But look, I mean, it's obviously going to be it's a new experience for Aston Villa. Bayern have all of that experience in the Champions League, obviously, and they'll want revenge for what happened in 1982 in that final as well, when Villa beat them 1-0. So there's I think in a way it's like Villa, whether it's win, lose or draw, it's just part of a growing process where Unai Emery's in his early days as a manager at Villa, because he signed on to 2029. So I like to think this is all the start of something great. But who knows what can happen? We beat Man City last season at home. We beat Arsenal twice. So do you think Villa can get a result? Do you think there's a win there maybe, or a draw?
There's a possibility, and I think if a couple of things go your way, I mean, Harry Kane being the obvious one, even if he starts, if he's just a little bit sort of still nursing that knock and gets taken off maybe at half time if he's not feeling it. I mean, Oktoberfest is on, so if any of the Bayern players decide to randomly go get pissed in the days before, I doubt they will, but you never know. Thomas Müller is partial to a beer. And I was down at Oktoberfest the other day myself. It was good fun. It's a shame this game isn't in Munich for Villa fans. It would have been quite an interesting away day, but I think maybe there was even some purpose to that scheduling. But yeah, I think Villa can get a result. But in the same sentence, Villa could get hammered 6-0. This is the Bayern side that is, it's a Bayern side that's absolutely on fire. Yes, they were held to a draw against Leverkusen on the weekend. But I will still say 6 wins from 6 and then a draw makes it sound like they're absolutely unstoppable. I don't think they are. And I do think they are 1 or 2 injuries away from actually struggling a bit. So if Harry Kane or someone else is missing, they already have that injury in their right back position. Not an important player, but just causes them to reshuffle. And then I think the squad starts looking, for the quality that they have in their starting 11, their squad is a little bit thin. That sort of second 11, if you will, behind the backup for each player. There's some really good backups, like Leroy Sané and Kingsley Coman in the wide positions, and then there's a bit of a lack of backup. So I do think Villa have a chance.
Brilliant. Well, Max, it's been absolutely brilliant to chat to you. I always love chatting football with you, and of course, there's RB Leipzig as well that Villa are playing in later this in the Champions League calendar. So hopefully, I can talk to you about that as well. But Max, for those who don't know, where can we find you and your work online?
Yeah, find me on Instagram. I don't really use Twitter much, but I'm also there, Max Merrill, or the Max Merrill on Instagram. And yeah, you can catch me on television screens in Australia, the UK, and America. Always mostly focused on the Bundesliga, but obviously all types of football as well. And yeah, vote for All Villa No Filler in the podcast awards. Best of luck with that.
I promise I didn't pay to get you to say that, but thank you very much. But thanks for coming on, Max.